Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning. Welcome to Financial Issues. Thanks for tuning in today. Well, at Financial Issues, we talk about financial issues that impact your own personal situation. Most of the time, we're talking about the markets and the economy and, how you can honor God in the way that you invest by adopting a biblically responsible investment strategy. Today, we're going to shift gears a little bit, still related to investments in a way, but we are in the thick of tax season right now. So I thought it would be prudent to bring up some topics around tax and give you some things to think about to encourage you, and so on and so forth. So we're going to jump right in and get to that today. So the tax filing deadline is April the 15th traditionally. I'm not sure what day it falls on this year. It might be if it falls on a weekend, it'll be the next Monday. So as you're preparing for your taxes, I'm sure that your mailbox has been littered with all of the different reports that you get, the W-2s, the things that report your income, your giving statements, your mortgage interest statements, all kind of different things are coming in the mail. So just a few reminders of some of the things that you're going to need as you prepare to file your taxes for the year. So it's a good idea to wait until you have all of your data in before you either take it over to your tax person or start working on it yourself. But, sometimes if you start working through it, you realize that you're missing some things and may have to wait. So you want to make sure you have all of the things that report income. So things like a W-2 if you have a wage-paying job, 1099 if you're a contractor or get payment in that sort of way. If you use PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, etc., you could potentially get a 1099 from them, even if you're not using it for business purposes. It all depends on how you're coding the payments that you send and receive. So if you receive payments for goods and services through these platforms, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, they may be reported to the IRS. So they are under obligation to report certain transactions to the IRS. It is your job as the taxpayer to say what those transactions were for, so to give clarity on that. So as of 2024, third-party payment processors must issue a Form 1099-K if you've received $5,000 or more in 2024. So you think, well, I didn't get one last year. Well, maybe not. The reporting requirements were a little bit different last year. They only had to send you a 1099 if you got over 20,000 and had more than 200 transactions. So either way, whether they report it or they don't, if you're receiving money for business purposes, it is your responsibility to report that income on your tax return, even if you don't get the K-1. Same goes for cash businesses. If you're in a business where you can receive cash, you are supposed to report that income, whether it is reported to the IRS by somebody else or not. Also, there's these gift tax considerations. Now, you can give money to whoever you want to give it to, but if you give more than $18,000, or if you gave more than $18,000 in gifts to an individual, so not cumulatively, but to the same individual, you may need to file a gift tax return, which is a Form 709, but most people won't owe taxes due to the lifetime gift exemption. You'll want to consult a tax professional if you think that you're in that boat. And of course, my disclaimer is that I'm not a tax professional, but a lot of these issues tend to overlap, especially for investing. K-1s, if you own some of the master limited partnerships that have made appearances on our buy list and you have certain amounts of income from those, then you're going to get a K-1 because they're a partnership. So a K-1 reports partnership income. Now, the deadline for K-1 filing for corporate returns was March the 15th. So in theory, you should have your K-1s, but a lot of times they are, just like with your personal return, they can file extensions. So they are notoriously sort of late when it comes to getting those in the mail. So if you own those things, you're going to want to make sure that you wait for them to get your taxes done, because if you get them after the fact and they impact your taxes, your tax preparer is going to charge you a fee to do an amendment. So you're also going to want to have all of your 1099s. So your 1099s report interest and dividends and capital gains that you may have in a taxable type of account. You could also get a 1099 from your IRA account reporting the distributions from those accounts. Or if you did a Roth conversion, you're going to get a 1099 for that. And you have to clarify that for the IRS that whether or not you have a penalty or owe taxes, you'll have to clarify that on your return. Also, if you own or cryptocurrency, the IRS requires taxpayers to disclose cryptocurrency transactions on their tax return. So there is a question on the first page of the 1040 that asks, at any time during 2024, did you receive as a reward, award, or payment for property or services, sell, exchange, or otherwise dispose of a digital asset? And so if you did in any way, then you have to do that. If you bought or sold any type of cryptocurrency, if you purchased anything with cryptocurrency, that is typically considered a buy and sell transaction. So you should be able to go to, if you have your crypto on an exchange, you should be able to go to that custodian, or if you hold it with a custodian, you should be able to get a list of transactions. I guess it's a little more complicated if you're a more complicated crypto person and maybe you don't own it on an exchange or through a custodian. So if you only held crypto without making any transactions, buying or selling any, you could potentially answer no. If you have questions, of course, that's best answered by a tax professional. Deductions, you're going to want to decide after you collect all the data, are you going to choose to use the standard deduction or an itemized deduction? So the deductions represent the amount of money that you don't pay any taxes on. So you get to exclude your deductions from your taxable income. The standard deduction for 2024, if you're single, is around $14,600. If you're married filing separately, it's $21,900. And for heads of household and married filing jointly, $29,200. So that's the part of your income which was almost doubled, by the way, by the 2017 tax changes that hopefully are going to be extended beyond 2025. So if itemized deductions are not more than that standard deduction that I just mentioned, then of course you want to use the standard deduction and you don't have a lot of extra work to come up with your itemized deductions. So things that can qualify for itemized deductions are medical and dental expenses if they exceed 7.5% of your AGI, state and local taxes, including sales tax and property tax, mortgage interest if you own a home and are paying interest on that mortgage, charitable deductions, of course, are another, whether it's cash or whether you gifted things like furniture, clothing, or in our case, we talk a lot about stocks. If you've gifted stocks, then you have to have the cost basis information, including the date that you purchased the stock and the price that you paid for the stock. If you gift the stock, it's much better to have owned it for at least a year and a day. Otherwise, then you may not be able to deduct the full market value. You may have to use the cost basis instead. If you gave from your IRA, qualified charitable distributions are reported differently. So you don't include that in your itemized deduction if you gave directly from your IRA because you were 70 and a half years old. Certain other casualty and theft losses could apply. So if you were impacted by a natural disaster, the California wildfires, the floods, the hurricanes that we've had, you may be eligible to deduct some of those losses. And I hope nobody listening to us has any of this next thing, but gambling losses. If you have gambling losses, you can potentially deduct that. And then unreimbursed medical and work-related expenses. So also beware, tax time is a prime season for grifters and scammers. In 2024, the IRS identified over $9.1 billion in tax fraud and other financial crime. So common tactics, we're going to get to that right after the break. So we want to make you aware of some things to be on guard about this tax season, and not just this tax season, but it just seems like scams and organized theft is increasing more and more every single day. So we've got to take a break right now, but stick around. We're going to come back with more financial issues right after this.
How is Timothy Plan continuing to lead the fight as you guys now enter your fourth decade of leading this fight of biblically responsible investing?
We've been too silent for too long, and we can no longer be silent. You stand up, like Ronald Reagan said, we're only one generation away from losing all of our liberty. Yeah. It has to be fought for. I wish it didn't. And you can fight for it. You don't need guns and ammunition and that. You can fight for it, especially with your dollars, because it's always about the money. And when the money starts impacting people, they start paying attention. When we launched this, they said it couldn't be done, but here we are 30 years later. They said you couldn't get competitive returns, but here we are.
What a tremendous testament of God's grace.
Go to financialissues.org/Timothy Plans to learn more about Timothy Plan.
In a time when children are facing unprecedented challenges, the gospel stands as the greatest source of hope. At Crossroads Kids Club, we have the incredible opportunity to bring the message of Jesus into public schools nationwide. Join us in sharing the life-changing hope of the gospel with the next generation. The need is urgent, but God's love is powerful. Together, we can offer Christ's love to children who are longing for it. To join us, visit reachOurSchools.com. That's reachOurSchools.com.
If a woman sees her baby on ultrasound, it doubles the likelihood that she'll choose life. On top of that, we share the gospel of Jesus Christ with her. This is why you should support preborn.
Then they sat me down. If you were to die today, do you think you would go to heaven? And I was like, no. Keeping the child was my first stepping stone. And ever since then, God has cleaned me up from the inside out.
Help support women in need. Go to preborn.com/FISM.
Securities offered through G.A. Reppel & Company, a registered broker-dealer and investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. Opinions expressed by Shanna are hers alone and are for informational purposes only, and do not necessarily represent those of G.A. Reppel or the outlet on which you are listening. You should consider how the information applies to your situation prior to personally implementing it, and consult any financial professional you work with to make sure it's applicable to your financial plan.
Thanks for sticking around for financial issues. We've got more to come here. I want to finish up my thoughts. We were talking about all things tax season. Maybe not all things. You can't consider it, I guess, a comprehensive list. But we've been talking about some of the things, some of the forms you want to gather, some of the information, some of the things that you need to be aware of. And now we're going to talk about some of the scams that are happening, because we want you to be aware. We want you to know that you have an enemy who seeks your destruction, and it's not people that may be sending you text messages or emails are calling you, it is the enemy of your soul that is looking to steal, kill, and destroy all that we have. So there are AI phishing schemes. So scammers use AI to create emails and messages pretending to be the IRS. They are often very convincing. They can include your name, your personal address, but the thing that you should know is that the IRS does not initiate contact with taxpayers. In fact, you almost can't even get them to answer the phone when you call unless you're willing to wait on hold for hours on end. But they won't send you an email. They will not send you a text message. They will not contact you on social media. They won't do any of that. If the IRS is going to contact you, it's going to be very delayed, and it's most likely not going to be about your 2024 taxes, and it's going to come in the form of a letter. In fact, when I've had to correspond with the IRS, they won't even take a fax. They won't take an email. You have to send them a letter through snail mail. So hopefully, DOJ and the new administration is going to bring the IRS into the most recent decade and hopefully into the golden age, and maybe even disintegrate them altogether. Man, wouldn't that be nice? But that's not something that will go. We still got taxes.
You don't have to worry about the scam letters at all. They won't be sending you anything.
Well, I don't know. They might.
Well,
they really prey on people that just have low information. Elderly people really fall victim to these scams. It's really sad. I was telling Sam on the break that one of my friend's moms, she's having some early signs of dementia, and they're constantly having to stop her from going to the store and buying the gift cards and going to get money orders. And people call her and contact her. She doesn't do email or text, so they call her and they convince her that something really bad's going to happen if she doesn't send money. And to some more tech savvy of us, this may sound ridiculous, like we would be able to see right through that. But Sam and I were also talking about, they're becoming really good at this. And in fact, I got a text message the other day that said that I had some tolls that were due, and I did happen to have an easy tag, like they were saying, and I had been in Houston recently, so it made total sense to me. But I guess that if they send out enough of these, they're going to be right with someone. But then I thought, what, this doesn't seem right. But then I talked to my husband, and he said he got the same one and he paid it. So I was like, oh dang, you better call the bank. So they're really getting, good at this kind of stuff.
And AI makes it scarier because they can pose way better than they could on their own.
Yeah, it does. It really does. So fake tax preparers, scammers sometimes pretend to be tax professionals. They'll offer cheap or expedited, really quick tax filing services along with really large refunds. So always vet out your tax preparer by looking for their credentials, such as their payer identification number. And, it's good to know someone else who uses them and knows them. Use someone who's been established in your community for a long time. That's a good idea as well. Fake phone calls. So scammers are pretending to be the IRS, an IRS agent demanding payment for back taxes or other fees. I know at least 2 phone calls a day in my voicemails saying that they can help reduce my tax payments or back taxes. I don't know any back taxes, so I know it's not true. But for other people that may not be as sophisticated or may not know as much, they could fall prey to this, and it can be a scary thing because the IRS does have a lot of power. They can levy your wages, they can take property if you legitimately owe back taxes, but so it's hard. So the IRS is never going to call you either. They're going to send you a letter, and then you can call them and wait in their call queue for hours and get to talk to somebody, hopefully. So also a lot of scams happen in crypto. So I've heard that There are people that are getting calls and they're demanding payment for back taxes and things like this, saying that they'll take crypto. Well, they do that because, crypto is sort of hard to track, and it's, if they are able to get you to send them money, you probably won't get it back. So I've heard that 1 or 2 states may take crypto payments, but the federal government does not. So that's how you can sniff out a scam for sure. Due to the nature of crypto, it's just hard or impossible, like I said, to ever recover stolen or crypto that you get scammed out of. Now, according to the FTC, consumers reported losing more than $12.5 billion to various frauds, crypto frauds in 2024, with investment scams accounting for 5.7 billion of those losses. So lots of money there. So kind of the bottom line, my parting thoughts in all of this is, first of all, you have to know I'm not a tax professional. So I do know about tax topics, but I'm not giving you tax advice. The scripture says it is wise to have counselors who are wiser than we are more knowledgeable on certain topics than we are. So I would encourage you, if you know very little about taxes, that you get a good tax consultant to help you navigate through that. Maybe taxes will be so easy one day we won't need help with them. The other thing that I would remind you is that people are watching right now. People are always watching Christians to see how we navigate life. So your tax preparer is going to see your tax documents. Some people, maybe at your church, will be seeing your giving statements. And of course, God will see everything. And surely you're going to talk to people about your tax situation. You're going to maybe complain about the taxes that we have to pay or things like that. So, I just want to encourage you, let's use our actions to testify about our faith. Let's be prepared to give an answer for the hope that we have. Scripture tells us that. Scripture is also clear. Jesus said that we are to pay Caesar what is Caesar's. So let's be honest. Let's not cheat on our taxes. Jesus followed up with that, and he said to give God what is God. So this is a great time of year, even if no one else sees. It's a good time of year for you to check yourself, to check your giving records. With, my situation is not quite straightforward. I get income from different sources, and, I have businesses, so I have expenses to deduct and things like that. But I have a method of giving, and so the year end is always a good time for me to sit down and see how much did I actually end up giving and what was my income, and to, make adjustments if I need to, and to, be happy that I was able to be a joyful and generous giver. It's a great time to give thanks. Stay alert. Watch for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. So, stay on guard. Don't fall prey to scams that are happening more and more these days. Our stewardship verse of the day, we've had a lot of verses today, but our official stewardship verse of the day comes from 1 Timothy 6:9. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. So this is a great reminder as we talked about all things tax today. There is great temptation to get out of paying the taxes that we owe. And we may be able to justify it because we're seeing every day how DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, is revealing all the awful things that our money gets spent on. So it's very easy to take this stance as, well, gosh, I don't want to pay them because they're going to end up going to all of these terrible things. But remember what Jesus said, we are to pay what Caesar what is Caesar's. And let's remember and apply our Christian values and principles in our tax preparation and in all areas of our lives. Wow, that was a mouthful. I don't know. We got time for a question or two?
I'll try to abbreviate a question we have here. It's from Gary and Belinda. They say they have $30,000 in a CD ladder, but now they're wondering if they want to take that money when it matures and put it into T-bills, but they're wondering how those actually work. They're saying, can we withdraw the money at will, or will there be mandatory time limits to leave the money invested like CDs? And they say, not that it matters, but they are full-time RVers and they are age 64.
Yeah, so what I would say is that if you're going to need the funds in a year, I would suggest sticking to CDs or money market only. You can get very, very comparable rates there. But to answer the general question, treasury bills and notes, they are marketable. So if you bought them in a brokerage account, there is a secondary market for them, meaning that somebody else, if you don't want to keep your treasury bill or treasury note anymore, somebody else will buy it from you. So you can place a trade in your brokerage account. Same things with CDs. I mean, CDs, you can access your money before they come due. If you have them held at a local institution or banking institution, you may have to pay a interest penalty to have access to the funds before they actually come due, but a lot of times you can get to that money. So same thing with the treasury bills and notes. It's going to depend on what interest rates do. So if interest rates have gone up since you purchased your treasury bill or note, then you're going to have to sell the one that you have for a little bit of a discount. If interest rates go down since you purchased yours, then you might get to sell it for a little bit of a premium. So great question, Gary and Belinda. Thanks for sending that in. And if you have questions, you can send them into our website as well. Check us out at financialissues.org. You'll be able to see all about our ministry. You'll be able to learn about our biblically responsible investment strategy, and you can become a partner there. If you want to become your own portfolio manager for just $132 a year, you can partner up with us and get access to that information. And if you just love the ministry, you can become a monthly soldier. You can support the ministry. You can give one time or on a regular recurring basis. We are listener and partner supported. Well, stick around. We've got more show to come right after this.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
If you don't get life right, you're not going to get all the other issues correct. Period. It is the issue that impacts every other issue. Life is the central part of what keeps this republic together. It is the contract that the founding fathers passed down through multiple generations. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You don't have life, you don't have a republic. There is a temptation out there right now. And I want to just tell you we must resist it. There's this temptation that we cast this issue aside. How does that honor God? It doesn't. And if it wasn't for preborn, I would be super just confused and depressed, because there has never been, in my opinion, a more disjointed time in the pro-life movement. We need a machine to go up against the Planned Parenthood beast. Like, we have to play offense against the pro-abortion forces in this country, okay? We have to play offense. And preborn does it in this compassionate, merciful, godly way that is just so inspiring and amazing.
My wife and I, we moved into this neighborhood. We had some experience with Crossroads Kids Club. We had served at another club. We kind of thought to ourselves, like, it would be really, really cool for us to actually bring in a club that was able to share the love of Jesus with kids directly into the school. And so we started our Crossroads at Hilltop.
Crossroads is amazing. You can learn all kinds of things about God. That He loves all of us. He died on the cross to pay for our sins. That He will help me in every way.
There is just such tremendous opportunity to reach kids in some of these areas that just aren't being reached.
Sometimes I pray every night. When I feel alone sometimes, God is right there sitting next to me. I can rely on him no matter what happens.
To learn more about Crossroads Kids Club and how you can get involved, visit reachourschools.com.
Welcome back to Financial Issues, folks. Great to be here with you all today. Hey, we got a little bit of a teachable moment coming up here that I'd love to share with you. So it's a question that we get oftentimes on our show. The place of where to place your operating and also non-operating expenses. It's really important when it comes to managing your money well. Now, if you're new to those terms, you don't really understand, your operating expenses is basically the money that's coming in and out of your bank account or your credit union account being used to pay your bills, being used to pay your mortgage, different things like that. Your paycheck will typically come into this account, and then coming out of it will be the payment for your mortgage and for your for your electric bill and grocery bill, things like that. Your non-operating expenses might be more your savings or your investing also. So it's really important for us to make sure that we know where to place this money. And it comes to this central question. Is it better to use a bank or a credit union, or take your money out and stick it under your mattress or stick it in a safe box at home? We'll actually look at all three of those examples in this segment. But I do want to hear what Shanna has to say about this. She's spoken about this before, but a great teachable moment for us here on the difference between banks and credit unions and what might the advantages and disadvantages of them be. So here's our host, Shanna Burt, talking about that topic. Could you explain to our listeners the differences between a bank and a credit union?
Sure, that's a very practical thing. You know, if we're going to if we're going to create an emergency fund where we're, not our investments, but our emergency fund where we need to store up some money for some times when we have to purchase things that we don't have enough in our regular operating account for, or if we have short-term goals, we need to have a practical way of doing that. And I would suggest that stuffing it under your mattress is not really a good option anymore. So, so we look at financial institutions, we look at banks, and then there are credit unions. When we're talking about where we're going to keep our operational money or our emergency money. So the real difference between banks and credit unions, there's quite a few, but the first thing that comes to mind for me is that one is not-for-profit, the other one exists for a profit. So most credit unions are nonprofit. Most banking institutions are for-profit organizations. So banks have customers, credit unions have members. So you have to have something in common with a group of people that you're doing your banking services with so that they get a nonprofit status. In credit unions, the money stays really locally in the community. If it's a bank, it may be, a national bank, or it may be a regional bank, but, the money may not necessarily stay in the community. They're different, too, in the ways that they are protected. Banks are typically backed by what's widely known as FDIC insurance, so it's federally backed and insured really from the institution being able to make your money just disappear. The credit unions are still protected, but most of them do not fall under FDIC protection. They have a private insurance, most of them called NCUA, I believe is the name of it.
Yeah, and that backing there, Shanna, that's typically about $250,000 per each account or for each member. How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the limits run pretty well the same. It's $250,000 per person per account. So if you and your spouse are on an account together, you've got $500,000 under either system.
Yeah, nice. And Shanna, what would be the advantages and disadvantages to both of these methods of holding our money?
There could be several. The ones that come to mind immediately for me is with a credit union, because they are not nonprofit and you have to be a member of them, you tend to get lower loan rates than you do in traditional banks, and higher savings rates. So they pay better interest or higher interest a lot of times on CDs and savings account. The profit that the nonprofit credit unions make is used to help offset those costs of doing business. my personal experience, I found that credit unions are much more friendly. They're community oriented than banking institutions. Although I guess banks could, if they're big banks, or even if they're regional banks, they might have more branches, so they might have more places for you to do business, rather than just having to go to your one location in your community. But even credit unions have sort of a network where they kind of work together.
Yeah. And Shannon, you kind of touched on this briefly earlier, but banks and credit unions, mostly we think about them in terms of savings, but how might we also use them for investing?
Well, part of investing is you have fixed income investing, and one of the things that we have that we use in our strategy from time to time are CDs. So you can purchase CDs in your investment account, but you can also get them from your local bank or credit union. And I would say that banks and credit unions are primarily for your banking services. So for your loans, for your savings, for your short-term money. But I would really avoid banks and credit unions when they offer you investment advisors, because that's a very, very common practice, even for credit unions, that they have an investment advisor that is housed in their branch. So though they're not directly in banks, they may be directly employed by the bank. Credit unions, they might just be affiliated with an outside broker, but you can't. I would say that banking and doing CDs at a bank or a credit union is biblically responsible, but you can't be certain that those advisors that are in those branches actually know what biblically responsible investing is, and or value biblically responsible investing.
Yeah, so kind of taking all that information that we just learned, Shanna, what would be the FISM recommendation for where to keep money? Do we as a ministry prefer one of these options over the other one?
Well, personally, I certainly prefer credit unions by far over banking institutions. But, there are even Christian credit unions that support, with the profit that they would make, that they support missions or things that are important to Christians. So that's one of the requirements of a credit union, is that you have to have some kind of common denominator. Like they have teacher credit unions, they have community credit unions, they have Christian credit unions, so on and so forth.
Yeah. And how would you guide us as we consider the percentages of our assets we have in savings, whether it's a bank or a credit union, versus invested in equities? Is there a kind of a form or a rhyme or reason for too much or too little in savings versus investing?
Well, you certainly want to be mindful of any limits that they have for protection. So whether that's FDIC or the NCUA protection of credit unions, you want to make sure that you're following the guidelines and not having any uninsured deposits on account with them. That was one of the things that really led to the trouble that Silicon Valley Bank had. So, and you want to have no lazy money. So you want to keep your operational money, the money that you use to pay bills and do things on a short-term basis, in a bank or a credit union. And you could also have some of your short-term money there using the CDs and things like that, money that you have short-term goals for. But any investment dollars, you really need to make sure that you have no lazy money. So you don't want to have money in a bank or credit union account that's earning very little when it could be deployed to earn more money for a future date.
Folks, that's a great reminder from Shanna there. And Sam, feel free to chime in with this as well also. But yeah, no lazy money. Having your money be purposeful, I think, is actually an outflowing of being a good steward of it. I think this is all part of the command that we have from the scriptures to be good stewards of the money that we have. Means every dollar that you have, there's a purpose to it. Maybe that purpose is that dollar is part of your savings. And it's an emergency fund. It's rainy day. Maybe it's an investing dollar. Maybe it's a dollar that's used to pay the electric bill. But every dollar has a purpose. There's no lazy money. I think that's really good.
Yeah, I think of what Jesus says in the parable of the three servants, and the lazy one, he says, well, I hid the money. And he says, why'd you do that? You could have at least put
it in the bank to get interest. So that's exactly what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Yep. So just to recap, folks, if you missed that clip or you're just joining us now, some of the differences between banks and credit unions. Banks are for-profit organizations. Credit unions are not for-profit. And also just some things to make sure of. Make sure that whatever you use, a bank or a credit union, that it is insured, and do the necessary math also to make sure that you have that coverage, whether it's FDIC with a bank or the equivalent with a credit union. Make sure that your money is spread out so that you have that coverage for each of your accounts. And you might just have to do some research and see, if your bank is covered by that or if your credit union is covered, but make sure that you have that, of course. I think it's worth noting, as Shanna just mentioned, credit unions might be more friendly. You might have the opportunity to do your banking with a Christian credit union. Back in the history of our ministry, we had one of those that we actually had promoted, a sponsor of the ministry, and could still be a great option for you for sure. And really, folks, I think it all comes down to just keeping a good account of what you have. Once again, this is a biblical principle here. Not that you go overboard with it, not that you try to be fanatical about it and you're always focusing on your money, but you do have a good account of what you have. It's good to know what's in your bank account. It's good to know the money that you have invested and maybe the market value as it's grown, for example. Keeping a good account of what you have, I think, is really important for all of this also. So coming up in the next segment, folks, we'll get some more insight from Shanna on banks versus credit unions, as well as on transferring bank accounts too. I think this is really good for you from whatever stage of investing that you're in. So you're going to want to stick with us when we get back from this break. So we got more financial issues coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
Hi, this is Sheena Bird, the host of Financial Issues. The Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
What separates Crossroads Kids Club from other ministries to reach school-age children? What sets you guys apart?
First of all is our connection with local churches. We mobilize, equip, train, support local church partners. We're right inside the schools. There's a number of ministries that try to serve public school children outside of the school, but we're able to be right there on the campus. Another key thing is just our values. Our highest value is actually relationships. And so we're not a ministry that's driven by a lot of fancy technology or flashy stuff, but rather getting adults who love Jesus and who love kids to sit on the floor with a group of kids, to listen to them, to love them. So I would say the relational emphasis and the simplicity of the model is actually something that makes Crossroads special as well.
Help reach kids with the hope of the gospel. Visit reachOurschools.com.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Well, thanks for being with us here, folks, on Financial Issues. Good to be here with you. Let's pick up our conversation from that last segment with some more wisdom from Shanna on the differences between and maybe best uses of banks and credit unions. So this first clip, just some insight on banks versus credit unions, generally picking up on what we saw in that last segment. Here is our host, Shanna Burt. Noah is not a partner, but he's very thankful for us. He listens frequently and is almost in a position where it makes sense for him to become a partner. So that's good stuff, Noah. I hope he can become a partner soon. He's paying off debt first by the grace and mercy of the Lord. It's awesome. Felt the Holy Spirit leading him to pull his meager checking and savings accounts out of one of the big banks and into into some Christian credit union. It seems to be a great option. He was hoping we might have some insight. He lives on the central coast of California. He's so thankful for what we do. It's awesome there. So, Shanna, what do you think? Any good credit unions for our friend Noah?
I don't have a specific recommendation, but I do like local credit unions in general over some of the big banks. And, I would say that you should always do what the Holy Spirit is leading you to do. That is the best source of advice that you can ever get. And so I would follow those convictions, look for maybe, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Christian credit union. It could be, just a local credit union. I find that local credit unions are much more involved in the community. They're nonprofit organizations. They'll pass along any profit that they generate to the members, which are the depositors, in the form of lower loan rates and better yielding money market or savings instruments, maybe CDs. So I do like that idea. One word of caution, though, that especially if you're looking to become a partner, if you're committed to doing your investing the way that Financial Issues puts forth, is, and it doesn't matter if you're a member of a credit union or a bank, most financial institutions these days have financial professionals, either not really on staff. They're usually affiliated with some outside group. Now, that outside group, even though it may be a Christian credit union, that doesn't mean that their investment people do biblically responsible investing. In fact, in most cases, the ones that I've looked at, they do not. So just be careful when you go to your financial institution that you're just doing your banking there, your checking, your savings, your loans. CDs are fine to do there, but be wary of the financial professionals that they may refer you to or that you may be contacted by because they shared your name with them, because that doesn't mean that they do biblically responsible investing.
Very, very good wisdom from Shanna there. The reminder to do your due diligence. Just because something says Christian in front of it does not mean they do biblically responsible investing. That's part of why we're here, actually, to vet these organizations and make sure that you're safe, that your investment money is safe there from non-BRI companies. This next clip, some great insight as well from Shanna on just some advice on transferring bank accounts. So here she is one more time, our host, Shanna Burt.
Living in another part of the country, and as of now, I haven't relocated my local, my primary bank. I am using a local bank, though. It's one that was established by my mother that I moved here with. So my questions are: I did give the name of the bank to the call screener, but one of my questions is, what do you think of the facility that I'm now using in the new location, and should I move my previous bank so that I have all my banking in this area? I have another part to that is, if I should have to, or you think I should move my primary bank, what should I look for as far as large or small, community, credit union, and that type of thing? And lastly, what type of questions, if I do start a new one, what type of questions should I ask, or language that should I look for in the contract of signing up with a new bank?
Mm-hmm. Those are all great questions. So I am definitely a fan of having things consolidated. So, I mean, as far diversification, yes, is a big deal, but you can be diversified in your investments and still hold them all at the same place. Banking's a little bit different, so you do want to mind the FDIC limits. So, or if you're using a credit union, which I'm a fan of a credit union, I like I like to use local credit unions for my banking. They tend to be very community oriented. They give back to the community. They are nonprofit, so as a member, you are actually an owner of the credit union. So, their goal is to try to be competitive, to offer any profit that they make in reducing the loan rates, paying more on CDs, and checking accounts. So that is my first preference. The bank that you mentioned, I can say it's PNC. I think that particular bank is fine to do banking at. Now, it is not biblically responsible. If you're thinking about buying the stock, I wouldn't do it. But as far as using their banking services, they're like the 6th largest bank in the country. There's a lot of stability there. So I wouldn't be against you using that particular bank if you've got great service. But, that's the most important thing, I think, whenever you're looking for a place to do business with. And the reason that I do banking where I do banking is because I know the people there. I get good service. If I have a problem, I can get in touch with somebody. Usually I can get back to the same person that I was talking to originally. And, they're very... I've done business there for a number of years. They know me, so they give us really great terms and really great rates. So those are the kind of things that I would look for. First and foremost is service. Well, first and foremost is you want to make sure that they have insured deposits, either by FDIC if it's a traditional bank, or the NCUA if they're a credit union. So just make sure that you have protection in that way. And then service to me would be the other most important thing, and the products that they offer. So I wouldn't look to banking institutions for investments other than maybe some CDs. But, if they have good checking, savings products, CDs, then I think that's the way to go.
Great stuff there, as always, from our host, Shanna Bird. So this topic has kind of led me to this question, and Sam, I'd love to get your feedback on this as well. We talk a lot on the show about where to place money. So the topic today has been banks, credit unions, different things like that. This gets into savings accounts as well. But a question that many of you have asked before is, how much money should I have in cash, hard cash at home? And that third option we mentioned, you got the bank, you got the credit union, or you can stick all your money under your mattress or in a lockbox at home. And, it's an interesting question, Sam.
It was the coffee can.
It was the coffee can, yeah.
Was the coffee can buried in the yard.
Absolutely. And there are some, that's where they put their money. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to grow any interest. But you've got it on hand in case you need it. A lot of people say if the banks fail, all different things like that. There are some arguments for this. Sam, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think that's a good idea to consider putting all of your money in a lockbox or in a coffee can or something
all
like
of it? I don't know if I put all of it, but it's certainly not a bad idea to have some cash on hand, a couple hundred bills stashed away somewhere. I don't know, your freezer or something like that, just in case you have it, in case there's an emergency and you really need to do something. Say there's a disaster in your area and you want to get out of town. It's good to have that cash on hand. You're right.
Absolutely.
Something happens at the banks. You can't get the cash you need. I don't see why not. I probably would recommend it, but the idea of having all your cash stored away that way, maybe not.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree completely. And I would say, folks, it's a small portion. A small portion of your money is your cash on hand. Sam, you nailed it with, it could be several $100s. You'll notice we don't give an amount of money on the show. A lot of people ask, should I have $5,000 in cash? Should I have $2,000 in cash? Should I have $300? We don't give an amount of money. That is a conscience issue. It's between you and the Lord there. What we would say, a good parameter is, just like Sam said, if there is a disaster and you need to, for example, get out of town and gas prices have gone up to $7 a gallon, or say there is, Say you got to get one of your children to the hospital and you need to put gas in your car or something like that. Or say, you need to be able to purchase something and, cash is still an available option. The US dollar is still available. We haven't gotten to the place where you're starting to barter things yet. It could be a good idea to have that on hand, but it's for that purpose. It's not so that all of your money is there hoarded. And really what ends up happening is you're sitting on it. And I do believe, Sam, you had mentioned earlier the parable that Jesus tells of the man who sat on his money. Jesus is very clear that the master was displeased with that.
He does bury it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He actually does bury it.
He literally buries it. Yeah. It's almost the exact same as stuffing it under your mattress. Yeah. So, folks, we would tell you absolutely, part of being a good steward is trusting that God is going to take care of your money in the places that you put it. And that has a lot to do with investing as well. You're trusting that God is going to honor you with that money that he has given you. Even though you're kind of, in a sense, you're taking a risk. You're risking that the market could crash. You're risking that the banks could fail. All that stuff could happen. But folks, there's a God in heaven. There's a God in heaven, and he's in control of all of this stuff. And we know from the scriptures that God blesses his people. It doesn't always mean that you're going to get a divine deposit in your bank account. In fact, usually that's not going to happen, but he is going to bless you for your faithfulness. So just be faithful. Be faithful with what God has given you. I hope that these clips were able to be a blessing to you, and the show was able to be a blessing to you as well. We've come to the end, folks. So until next time, remember, it's all his. Let's be found good and faithful stewards with the money that God has given to you. Until next time, I'm Seth Udinsky, and we'll see you later for more financial issues.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.